Hello and welcome to the Oxygen Addict Triathlon Podcast. We're brought to you every week by our sponsors, precisionhydration.com.
Leaders in triathlete sweat testing and hydration with multi-strength electrolytes that match how you sweat. You can get 15% off the product with the code OxygenAddict15.
tgstore.co.uk.
The home of premium sportswear, including Gore bike wear, Gore running wear, and Aquasphere wetsuits. You can get 10% off with Oxygen Addict 10.
And Team Oxygen Addict,
which is event-specific training plans, coaching guidance from Coach Rob Wilby.
That's me.
And supportive teammates in a private Facebook group.
And welcome to the show. Hello, Hells. How are you doing?
Hi, Rob. It's Manic
Hi,
Monday, isn't it?
It is Manic Monday. It's all right, though. I've had a big mug of coffee and we're good to go.
Oh, I love it. I've been on the tea, chain drinking the tea, and getting lots done. It's good.
Good for you. Yeah, I've been getting lots done as well. I got a run as well. Got a bit of a run in this morning.
Oh,
keeping
nice.
the run streak going.
That's good.
Ran up to the post office to collect a parcel that had been not delivered, as it were, and got there, and it was massive.
Oh,
The box. I'll talk about this later. It was prizes for the prize draw from Kevin Collington, who's our interview today. It turned out, but I got there, and the box is like 18 inches long by 14 inches high.
Oh, no way. Did you get there and you're like, oh.
Yeah, I was like, I thought this was going to be like a book from Amazon or whatever. And the woman was like, are you running home with that? So I've had to run with this thing like on my shoulder like it was a 1980s beatbox thing. So it wasn't heavy, just really unwieldy. So thanks very much, Kevin. We'll talk about your prizes later, man. It's very kind of you to send those through, but it was a bit of a challenge running back with those on the way back from the post office.
I love it. It's always good fun though, isn't it? Trying to kill two birds with one stone, like getting, I don't know, running back from work or something, or running and doing your little errands, and then it's only when you get there and you think, oh no, I've not got a bag big enough or something to collect everything. Oh man, I'm now sitting here freezing cold because I've got to wait and I didn't bring another layer.
I'm known at the local co-op as that guy that runs here and does his shopping, and even if it's raining or whatever, refuse to drive the car to go there, just go and do the shopping and run home with 2 carrier bags. And it's a much better way to do the shopping. It really is.
It limits to what you can get, isn't it? And you don't faff for as long.
Don't faff, in and out. Don't go for the vault. 30 seconds door to door, like they said in Point Break.
Oh, I love it. I got out running yesterday, Rob, a little, I don't know, it was just under an hour, but it was like the most stunning morning, and we went quite early because I wanted to watch a certain tennis match, the final of the Aussie Open. And I thought,
did you watch the whole thing?
Well, here it is, you see. I thought, if we go for a run around about 8 o'clock, knowing that the match starts at 8:30, I thought, I will miss the first bit, but that's fine because it's not going to be over in like half an hour, is it? So, we missed the first set, but then we were able to watch the next 4, and I was absolutely loving it.
Brilliant.
I used to love tennis, Rob. I used to like live, breathe, and eat it. I started playing tennis when I was 5.
I did not know you were a tennis player.
Yeah, I was one of those little kids whose racket was bigger than me. And
bigger than you, and you just loved doing it.
Oh, absolutely loved it. And I had when short tennis was really short tennis, and you had the plastic rackets and stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had one of them. Slightly shortened, I think, because it was, again, a bit too big for me.
You could have been Britain's great contender at tennis.
Well, I was...
Had it gone a different way.
I was the Mould Area Under 10 girl singles winner.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, there you go.
You have to send me a photo later. I'd love to see that.
Okay, fine. I'll do that.
Great stuff. Right, come on, let's talk some triathlon. We have some results this week. Because finally, we've got races going on again, haven't we?
Oh, I know. Loads of people were racing this weekend. Probably not so much in the UK, but out in warmer climes. So we had 70.3 Dubai going on and 70.3 South Africa and Israel. So we're going to talk about all of them shortly. But race results are brought to you by TG Store.
Yeah, tgstore.co.uk, where you can get 10% off with the code OxygenAddict10. And we don't want to be one of those shows that pushes the sponsors, but these guys are super awesome. So get on there and get yourself some nice clothing. I've had an email through Hells from Andy, who runs the place, and he says, listening to you talk about your disgusting, smelly Gore-Tex jacket last week, I thought you'd like to know we promote a full clean and reproofing service, right? Free of charge. So if you've bought your Gore-Tex jacket from them, you can post it to them, they'll wash it and reproof it and send it back to you for free. How good's that?
That is amazing.
It pretty much is. And as well as that, if you rip anything that you've got, they do a free repair service for all the Gore bikewear and runwear if you've bought it from them again. Now, I went on the little website before and had a look. So it's tgstore.co.uk/Gore-Tex-reproofing or tgstore-promise. Go and check those out, and I'll put them in the show notes later. Even if you haven't bought it from them, it's only £10 to have it washed and reproofed by them, and I think it's like £7.90 to buy the little bottle of stuff to do it yourself. So it's a no-brainer, really, isn't it?
That's really good, because we were just talking, like, I know it's different, Gore-Tex and down, but I need to do similar with my down jacket, because it just, it's minging.
Yeah, totally.
I think, yeah, that's great.
Just goes, man, when I talked to Andy and he said he wanted to sponsor the store, he just seemed like a really good guy, and he had a really good philosophy and stuff like this I didn't even know about. But to offer that to your customers for free, I think is absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
And it would mean my new Gore-Tex jacket that I've just got is going to actually get washed at least once a year from now on.
Rather than never.
So listen, I wear it, Helen wears it. If you're into getting yourself some new stuff for the winter, get over to tgstore.co.uk. Brilliant quality kit, especially, I think it's unarguable, this, Helen, there isn't a rain jacket that's as comparable to Gore-Tex jackets. It's the industry standard, isn't it?
Yeah, they got me through many a DV expedition as well.
Get on there and get yourself something, and use the code OxygenAddict10 to get yourself 10% off as well. And a place they don't need Gore-Tex jackets at the moment, Helen, is Dubai, where 70.3 Dubai has happened this weekend.
Correct. The weather looked a lot better conditions for racing than last year when it looked pretty windy, didn't it? But Rob, what a race for GB women. GB women, we had the fastest swim split thanks to Lucy Charles, the fastest bike split thanks to Kimberly Morrison, who we'll hear from in a moment, and the fastest run split thanks to Emma Pallant.
I tell you what, the thing that really impressed me about this, I mean, anytime Lucy Charles is on the start line, I'm guilty of now thinking, well, she's going to be first out of the swim. And she was, and she's a brilliant swimmer. But I don't know if you saw this in the results that we got through. So Lucy was out in 26:07. She was about 35 seconds ahead of the pack, but Emma Pallant was out in 28:30.
Yeah.
So she's only 2.5 minutes down on Lucy Charles, and 2 minutes down on like the lead swimmers that are behind Lucy. So that's a brilliant swim from her, isn't it?
Yeah, I noticed that, and I thought she has absolutely upped her game.
Yeah.
She's right up there, isn't she?
For someone who a year ago we were talking about as a duathlete in inverted commas, that's like seriously good swimming, isn't it?
Yeah, really, really good. And so Emma actually finished fourth because she posted the fastest run with a 1:18, Rob.
I know, that's Scorchio, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely superb. And then, like I say, we'll hear from Kim in a second, but she did a 2:08 bike, which was the fastest of the day.
Well, do you know that it's great we've got this little bit of audio from Kim Morrison. Shall we play it now and let her tell her story, and then we can talk about it a bit more?
Yep, let's do it. So here we go. Kim sent us her race report from 70.3 Dubai.
I swam in a small pack of 4, but had great company. I was with Kaiser and the 2 Emmas, Emma Billam and Emma Pallant. We exited the water, and my husband Ben told me we were 1 minute 30 down off the main pack. But in my mind I was thinking, where's the front of the race? Where's Daniela Reef, Ironman world champion? So I hopped on my new Giant Trinity Advanced Pro, kindly thanks to Race Hub this season, that's the bike I will be riding, and got to work. By about 10 kilometres I passed a couple of the pro men's field, and I was slowly but surely making my way through the women's field. It was about the 20-kilometre mark when I noticed up the road there were some bikes with cameras and a couple of cyclists. I wasn't sure if this was going to be more men or the front of the women's field, and I knew I hadn't seen Daniela or Ellie Salthouse yet. Must have been about the 23 kilometre mark when I arrived. I was at the front of the race, the cameras were zooming in on my number, zooming in on my face. It was a magical dream come true feeling. There was a big screen back at transition where I knew Mum, Dad, Ben would all be watching, so I was overwhelmed with emotion. I put myself right at the front, kept the power, feeling comfortably uncomfortable, and kept my head down and cycled my way to the 45-kilometre turnaround point. At this point, Daniela overtook, and she put a lot of power down, so it became more than uncomfortably comfortable, but I stayed relaxed, I stayed calm. I was very proud of the position I had reached in this race, and I kept with her, and we cycled the 45Ks home, and I could keep her just there within my reach. So into T2, Daniela and I onto the run. Again, a glance at Mum, Dad and Ben and an overwhelming feeling of elation. And it was now a time for me to put my own race head on. No longer was I able to race the other girls. This was the first time I'd run a half marathon since August 2016, so this was a real training exercise for me. I wanted to run at a pace where my tempos had been feeling pretty conservative, so I held on to 4:10 pace per kilometre for the first lap, and this just shied away off 5 seconds for the second lap, and then another 5 seconds for the third lap. So I came in around the 1 hour 31 mark for a half marathon, not too far from my PB pace. So I'm so thrilled with the way things are going so far for me over the winter, and this race has been a great stepping stone to my big challenge next, which is Ironman 70.3 Buenos Aires in March, where we'll be going back to try get my title.
I'll tell you what, it's not often you get to ride up to Daniela Reef.
No, I know. There's a really good photo of them kind of running out of transition to start the run together, like neck and neck. And Kim, as you heard there, she just basically was like, it was a total dream come true. So, yeah.
Well, there's
amazing.
more of that in her future, isn't there? A bike performance like that is absolutely staggering.
Yeah.
I think we can't overstate how impressive that is. That's absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah, so it'll be, I reckon, going back to Argentina, she'll hopefully have another great race there as well, and it just shows how much hard work pays off, doesn't it?
Yeah, totally. Well, we're looking forward to seeing how you get on this year, Kim. Well done, mate. That's a storming performance. Right, should we go over the results for the ladies then overall?
Yep, sure. So Daniela Reef had a great race, finished in 4:01 ahead of Ellie Salthouse of Australia. So she's one of Siri Lindley's athletes, isn't she? And she again had a brilliant swim, and then came past Kim on the quite soon into the run, and then Sarah Crowley of Australia was third in 4:06. Emma Pallant was one of the sort of biggest moves of the day up the field with her run of 1:18 to come in fourth in 4:07. Now, did you see, Rob, Kaisa Lehtinen of Finland?
No.
Yeah.
Go on.
Right. She actually did the run with no shoes.
You're joking?
No, I'm not joking. She couldn't find her shoes in transition, and still managed to post something like a 1:20 or something absolutely incredible. So she finished fifth. Amazing.
Wowzers. What's the story behind that then? Did they get moved, or did she get to pack them, or?
I think, well, I was, following it a little bit online early doors, and they were just sort of saying she's not looking, I don't know, she's spending a bit of time in T2, she's looking puzzled,
right.
And then just sort of said she set off on the run with bare feet.
Crikey. And she's only finished 35 seconds behind Emma Pallant as well, even with that. So
exactly.
Fair play. I hope she's all right after it. That's a long way to run in bare feet if you've never run in bare feet before.
That is hardcore, isn't it?
She's getting the the Helen's fist pump of joy for today.
I know.
That's the hardcore award.
Oh, it's amazing. Caroline Steffen finished in 4 and 9. So Kimberly Morrison, as we mentioned, finished off in 8th. She did a 1:31 run. And then Lucy Charles was 10th with 4:14.
Yeah, great strong showing for her as well there to finish 10th at this one overall. That's good. Her biking's really improved, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Again, another one.
Definitely. And I think she did like a 1:26 run, so, you know.
Yeah, really solid.
Yeah.
Well done, Lucy. Right, over on the men's side.
Yeah. Now, Rob, what did I say last week?
You said no question Javier Gomez is going to take it out.
Didn't I? And you were like, nah.
I was saying, oh, mate, it's early season. Yeah, no question.
So he won in 3:42 ahead of Josh Amberger of Australia in 3:44. He finished just ahead of Rudy Wild in third.
And there was me going, well, we don't know what kind of form he's going to be in. Maybe he's just turning up to roll around. 70-minute half marathon to close it out. God grief.
I know. Because he came off the bike. I'm sure he was like 8th or 9th off the bike.
Yeah. Yeah, he was cruising along on the bike.
Yeah.
1:10 run split in January.
It's a bit good, isn't it?
I cannot wait to see how he goes at the 70.3 World Championships this year.
Oh, I can't wait to see him against, Brownlee and Frodeno in a big Ironman. It would just be incredible.
Well, first of all, I want to see them go head-to-head at 70.3.
Yep.
I think that's the first thing. If you could get him and Brownlee going head-to-head in a 70.3, if he's running that uncontested 70-minute half marathon, it just blows your mind, doesn't it?
It's insane. It's really, it's amazing. I wonder
They're
where.
They're going to kill each other.
I hope not. I wonder where, though, if Ali's going to try to qualify for Chattanooga this year, I wonder where he will try to, stamp his slot.
Yeah, well, let's turn it over to the listeners. If anyone knows Ali or trains with him, see if you can send us a note over and let us know what his plans are. It'd be interesting to find out, wouldn't it?
Yep, definitely. Shall we move over to South Africa, Rob?
To South Africa with a more British success over there too.
Yep, it was.
70.3 South Africa.
And Jodie Kanama won her 7th Ironman 70.3 South Africa title, which is pretty cool.
That's up there, isn't it now? It's up there in the Cam Brown domination of an event and making it your own kind of area.
I mean, 7. It's just it's pretty remarkable, I think.
7 is like longer than kids go to primary school for.
Exactly.
So they go at 4 years old as these tiny munchkins, and they leave as hulking great 11-year-olds. Jodie's won every year. That's just brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah. So she won it in 4:39.49, just ahead of Susie Cheetham, who finished in 4:40.51. She was chasing her down hard on the run, and Jędrzejczyk Agnieszka of Poland was third in 4:47.
Yeah, it sounds like Jodie had a big old gap at the end of the bike and kind of cruised the run by the sounds of things, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Cool. Over in the men's race, it was taken out by, we've got to get him on, Romain Guillaume. We interviewed him, do you remember, just really briefly after we raced at 70.3 UK a couple of years ago.
Yes.
And he was super fun. I had such a laugh talking with him afterwards. And we said, we'll get you on the podcast. And we never managed to get it done yet. So I'm making a note now, get Romain on the show. Add him to the list. So he took it out in, I think, 4:08, and then James Kanama in second in 4:11.27, Kyle Buckingham in third in 4:14, and Mark Threlfall was in fifth there, 4:16 after leading the swim out. So another good performance from him.
Yep, superb. So top racing from everyone in Dubai and South Africa. And then Rob, I know we've mentioned it a couple of years on the trot now. Israman, because every year at this time, clearly these photos appear of like blue skies and sort of desert landscapes, and it just looks incredible. And they've got the longer distance one and the shorter distance, haven't they? So if we just go through it quickly, so the Israman 226 was won by Dan Altman of Israel in 10:09. Laurel Wasner won the women's in 11:13, and then the sort of shorter distance, which is the half basically, Ben Collins won that one in 4:24, and Jenny Fletcher of Canada won the women's race in 5:24.
Yeah, if anyone's looking for an early season race, we had Howell on, didn't we, talking about that, just raving about it.
Yeah.
Super, super tough, extremely hilly. I think it's a split transition and you end up on top of a mountain at T2 and have to run downhill for like 15k or something. So it's brutal. But yeah, again, it looks like the athletes on the pictures are in arm warmers and stuff, so maybe it wasn't very warm again at the start of remember Hal saying, do you remember it was freezing last year when they got out of the water, like 4 degrees or something?
Yeah, that's it. It does look really quite like stunning but cold.
Yeah, and you wouldn't think that, would you, for Israel at this time of year, but there you go, hey?
There you go, those pesky mountains, Rob.
Yeah, you said it.
So, Rob, you know how we just heard just before from Kim Morrison?
Yeah.
Well, I reckon she is definitely an athlete to watch this year. And there are a couple of other athletes who we think that we should be keeping our eyes on. So a couple of British women who are looking to go well this year. Let's hear from them now.
My name's Imogen Simmons. I've been racing triathlon for almost 3 years now, and I was an age grouper up until the end of this year, and I'll be going pro for 2017. I'm 23 years old and I compete my focus is on 70.3 and a bit of Olympic distance, but all non-drafting racing. So I train in Thailand with my team Z Coaching, which is run by Jürgen Zach. It's a group of 20 athletes or so, plus or minus, because we get a lot of people flying in from all over the world really to train with us. And we're all standards from beginners to pros. There are other pros who train with us. My proudest result to date, so that's a difficult question. Possibly my latest one, I just set a new PB at Phuket 70.3 this year in 4:22. I won my category at the World 70.3 World Championships last year, but I had never cracked the 4:30, and that would be my target for the year. Honestly, my strength is, I'd almost say that I don't have any of the 3 disciplines as any weakness. My favorite session would be, it depends a bit on where I'm training at the time. If I'm with a group, my favorite session would be Thursday morning ride, which we do push and spin, and the aim for me is to hang on to the group. I cycle with a bunch of cyclists as well, so they're extremely strong. And you do a 5k lap, half of it in high cadence spin, half of it grinding a hard gear up the hill, and 10 times round, and you've got to, well, for me, I've just got to survive. And it ends up getting quite tactical for me. 2017 is going to be a huge learning curve for me. My hopes would be to place at one of the halves that I'm going to do, place respectively, maybe even top 3, and potentially even qualify for Chattanooga. But that would require racing very well early in the season, seeing as I'm starting 2017 off with no points.
Hi, I'm Ruth Pembroke, and I'm a member of Full On Tri, and I race in the 25 to 29 age group. I got into triathlon in 2013 when I was actually training for the Berlin Marathon, and someone at work got me involved in the London Triathlon for charity. I think my proudest result was probably the Heaver Gauntlet in July this year, just because I did probably what I think was comparatively my best time. Biggest race that I've done was the 70.3 World Championships in Australia this year. I managed to come 3rd in that, which I'm quite happy with. I'd say my strengths are definitely the bike. My run is hopefully getting there, but my swim still leaves a lot to be desired. There's a training session that I do on the treadmill, which is kind of 90-second intervals with then sort of jogging for the rest of the kilometre, and I find that really good. It's like a nice, short, sharp workout. Probably every single swim is my worst training session. No, there is in particular one swim set that is a lot of technique and a lot of pull paddles and kind of kicking, and I hate that one. My hopes for 2017 are to survive my first Ironman and to hopefully from that qualify for Kona. That would be the complete dream to eventually turn pro, but we'll just have to see how next year goes.
There you go, Rob. So Ruth Purbrook, who we did have on the show a couple of weeks back, and then Imogen Simmons, who's training out in Asia. So and she had a good run up to Christmas with a few decent results out in Asia. So definitely 3 women to keep our eyes on this year.
Well, this is going to be one of these mark my words moments, Helen. I like that you've done this. You've said, right, Rob, I'm going to give you 3 names here, and the listeners don't know this, but Helen's had this in the bag for about a month. She was going, right, I want to do this, the ones to watch feature, and I mean, you've called it. You've already called it, haven't you?
Just ones who I reckon are going to do well, you know.
Well, you've got I'm Kimberly Morrison, Rob. I'm telling you, Kimberly Morrison, she's going to go well next year, and then she's just biked her way up to Daniela Reef, so. No pressure, Ruth. No pressure, Imogen. Helen's picked you 2 as well. So get out there and start winning stuff.
And Ruth was Team Free
stuff.
Speed now, so it'll be. So therefore, she's brilliant.
Yeah.
She was lovely on the show as well.
Yeah, definitely. Well, good for you. Well done for Helen's little stable of athletes that she's picked. There you go, Helen. Yeah. You're like a talent scout, aren't you?
No, I do get it wrong, but I'm not going to this time.
Not this time, not with these 3.
No, not with these 3.
All right, so let's jump on over. We've got a question for Coach's Couch from Rob Brooks. Coach's Couch is sponsored by my triathlon coaching company, Team Oxygen Addict. By the time you're listening to this, the team will be closed. So we've closed for this window for this year, but there's loads of stuff that we've done, Hells, in the build up to this opening window that I think will genuinely help people out. So if you want to go over and check it out at team.oxygenaddict.com. The blog posts on there, we've got loads of basically videos and blog posts about how you can structure your own year to help yourself get better at triathlon. So that's all free. Get on there and educate yourself, and I hope it helps you out. So Rob Brooks's question is, do you want to read it out, or shall I do it?
You can do it. Go for it.
I'll do it. Okay. When completing a training day with more than one session in, is it better to keep the disciplines in order, or can they be mixed up? For example, does it matter if I run first and then bike, or maybe run then swim? I'm kind of leaning towards replicating the order of what happens on race day, as surely that's more specific and aids muscle memory, but your view would be appreciated. Right, so a couple of things to think about. I think if you've got a swim in the day, I definitely think swimming first is a real bonus, from 2 reasons. I think firstly, neuromuscular adaptation wise, I think you're gonna, especially if you're a late onset swimmer or an adult swimmer, you've got more to gain by swimming first thing when you're mentally fresh and physically fresh. And essentially what we're trying to build in swimming is the right pattern of firing of your muscles so that you can learn a new skill. And that's obviously going to be easier if you do it when you're fatigue free and when you're mentally fresh. So I'd always go with swimming first if you possibly can for that reason. Second reason is people who swim late on in the day when they've already trained, especially if they've already run, seem to struggle with those kind of horrendous foot cramps, don't they, Hells?
Yes, they definitely do.
We both know those well, don't we? So you can avoid those largely by getting in the pool first thing in the morning when you're fresh. And I don't really understand why it happens, but I've got so much evidence of it happening to people in the late swim session that, there's definitely a cause and effect thing going on there. So that's another good reason for swimming first. In terms of running and biking, I think you could look at it and go, right, it's better to run second in the day after biking because that's what happens in a triathlon. I think another way to look at it, I think that's fine. Another way to look at it is if you want to keep yourself injury free, do the thing first in the day that's got the biggest risk of injury. So I think it's fairly well established that biking is a lower injury risk to you than running is. And so I'd be tempted to get a runner or a triathlete to run first in the day and bike later and just have them running on fresh legs, because I think biking on tired legs is good training, whereas running on tired legs, except for very specific times in the year and very specific sessions, I think it's to be avoided if you possibly can. So I'd always go with running as your first session and biking as the second one if you possibly can. There's a few caveats. If you've got several years of experience and you know you can run okay after you've biked in the day, then clearly that advice might not be for you. Again, if you're doing a very specific race prep session where you're running off the bike, then the advice is going to be different because you've got a specific purpose for that session. But otherwise, I think I'd split it up that way. What's your opinion, Hells?
My opinion is, Rob, sometimes the pool will dictate what you can do and when.
Yeah,
so
totally. That's the first thing, isn't it?
Totally. I'm a big fan of swimming first thing in the morning. That's just me. If I'm on an early shift and I can't, well, I go straight from work to the pool after, so like at lunchtime, because I know if I go home first, I will really, really struggle to get the motivation to go back out to the pool. Whereas I can get out on my bike or go on the turbo or something. So I will always try to swim first if I've got two things going on. Just the thought of waiting until 9 p.m. to swim, I just hate it, because by that point it's almost like you build it up in your head that you don't want to do it, or there are many reasons why you you can build excuses in.
Yeah.
So I would definitely go with that first. I think one thing, Rob, which you probably haven't touched on, but actually another thing I would probably remember is we do this for fun. So
yeah,
if for some reason you're like having a mega pants day at work, or something stressed you out, or someone's really annoyed you, you know what? If running makes you feel amazing, go and do that run first. Just get yourself in a much better mental space.
That's such a brilliant point, Helen. It should probably have been the first thing that either of us said. It should be the guiding factor for age group athletics, shouldn't it? Do the thing that makes you feel best first.
Well, it's. I just think sometimes if.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I totally agree. I think if you need the mental health benefits more, get out and do the thing that makes you feel good. And if swimming is a chore and it's not going to happen that day, go with the thing that's going to make you feel better. I think if it's a primarily a performance-based piece of advice, then maybe we'll look at what's going to get the most out of the athlete. But I think for the majority of us, what you just said holds absolutely true.
Totally. And then my other point is, if you know that you're doing efforts on the bike, for example, I find with that, like, again, I can't do too hard. I would never do a hard run and a hard bike on the same day. Never, ever, ever.
Yeah.
So again, if you're going to do, really hard efforts on the bike, well then make sure that run is very much not a hard effort.
Yeah, totally. And if you possibly can, to separate those out in the day as well, so we haven't got the. I'm a big fan of the idea of there being 2 sessions in the day rather than like there being an hour between them, and that's obviously in a perfect world. But if you can do a morning and an evening thing, I think having a day of doing your job mentally is really good for you to then come back and do the training session later on, rather than the two rolling into each other, as can sometimes happen.
Yeah, and this, I often do the two rolling into each other if I'm sort of more on a day shift, because actually that's how it works. I have more time at one end of the day and not much time at the other end of the day.
Totally.
So again, there isn't always like one answer, but if I'm on if I do my lunchtime swim thing, then I'll usually have a little nap, and then I'll do my second session.
Helen's nap, we should mention those as well.
Get
a nap in if you get the chance. If someone's a shift worker like you are, those afternoon naps are gold, aren't they?
Oh, especially in winter when you can go back with a hot water bottle in your pajamas. It's like it's quite nice.
Oh, love it.
Yeah, but there we go.
Love it.
So,
cool.
Rob, we have thrown. This is Rob Brooks, not Rob Wilby. Rob, we have thrown a few ideas at you. There probably isn't one answer for every time that you have more than one session, but hopefully some of that advice will help.
Hopefully so. Right, let's jump into this week's interview, Hells.
Let's do that, Rob. It is with Mr. Kevin Collington.
Kevin Collington. He is a purple patch athlete. Last year he won 70.3 Korea and the Half Challenge Iceland, and I don't know if you remember, he was third in that race at Brazil, the crazy fast one. But he was just behind Tim Don at the finishing line. He talks about the story of chasing Tim Don down, which is great. and it's a really good interview. He was a real good laugh, actually, and I really enjoyed it. So we'll turn you over to our interview with Kevin. Kevin Collington, welcome to the Oxygen Addict Triathlon podcast. It's really great of you to come on the show, man. Thank you so much. How are you doing today?
I'm pretty good. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure, mate. So I think what we want to start by doing is telling our listeners a little bit about you. So I've got the greatest hits sheet right here because I've just been nosing through your website, which I've got to say is really good, mate. You're a really talented writer, so I think people should go over and check that out and read your blogs because it's a good read, and you've got some great photos on there as well.
Oh, thank you so much. I should probably write another blog since it's been about 6 months.
Well, I'm going to come to this later, but I want to hear some of your stories from later in the season. So yeah, we're going to push you to do some more writing, man.
All right.
But the greatest hits from 2016, you've won 70.3 South Korea, you've won Half Challenge Iceland, which I definitely want to hear about because it's such an awesome place. You were third at Ironman Brazil in the super fast race that was down there. And previously, in 2015, I've picked out some highlights. You were second at 70.3 Monterey, where Helen was actually racing, I think. You won Challenge Williamsburg. You were third at 70.3 Vineman in California, third at 70.3 Uruguay, and seventh at Ironman Arizona on your debut Ironman race, where you went 8:16, which is pretty mind-blowing. And we'll come back to that as well. And then in 2010, I saw you were 8th overall in the 70.3 World Champs. So that's quite a set of results you've got hidden away there, even just over the last couple of years, mate.
Yeah, well, the past couple of years have been with Matt Dixon at Purple Patch, so we've really sort of developed my cycling, and so that's been the biggest improvement I've had recently, which has helped me out a lot in these half-distance races and Ironman. So.
Yeah, well, I've got to give a big shout out and thanks to Matt because we had him on the show about a year ago. I'm trying to hook up with him to get him back on the show again, and he was a great interview, but he's been so good at kind of hooking us up with interviews with pros. We've got a few more of your teammates coming up over the next couple of months as well. So yeah, I want to talk more about your coaching later on and your experience with Matt and the way that he's helped develop your cycling, because obviously you guys are doing something right together and I want to see what we can learn off you. But before we do that, let's start by, I think I mentioned this beforehand, I like to go back and give the listeners an idea of how you ended up in triathlon in the first place. And you know, we can sometimes get lost in the headline figure of winning 70.3s and doing 8-hour 15 Ironmans, but how did you actually get into triathlon in the first place?
Well, my first triathlon was actually a relay. I grew up in Florida, and a couple of girls on my swim team, on my age group swim team, wanted to do the Disney triathlon, but they wanted to do it as a relay. So one of us owned a bike, and obviously all three of us could swim, but I was the only one who had like even the semblance of running ability. So they threw me on as the runner, and yeah, I just went out to Disney, and it was so much fun. I mean, I was hooked from the moment I finished, which was actually a horrible performance. I think it's my slowest 10K I've ever run to this date, and my last mile was like 9 minutes or something. But,
there's hope for all of us yet. Then I think
yeah,
there's nobody listening who hasn't had that horrible last mile experience, Kevin.
Yeah, I think I took it out in like something like 5:20, which I was very unprepared to do. I wasn't really training for running, and then it was a hard last 5 miles of that 10K, but still had fun in retrospect. And I did the event the next year by myself as an individual. So that's how I got into it.
And how old were you at the time when you did your first one then?
I was 18 years old, so I was a senior in high school here in the States.
Oh wow, okay, cool. And then from that point forward, were you kind of, obviously you were doing some sports at the time, and you just mentioned you were quite a useful swimmer. Were you from a swim background originally?
So I am from a swim background. I swam since I was 4 years old in Florida, and swam through high school. I went to University of Florida right after that Disney triathlon experience, and I was gonna go out for the swim team, but I wasn't fast enough really. University of Florida was such a high-powered swim school at the time. I think Ryan Lochte was a year ahead of me, so he was the headliner at University of Florida, and then everyone else at the school was of similar abilities to him. So I just ended up joining the triathlon club. I was like, oh, this will be a good way to stay in shape, and it ended up becoming more than that. But still, it was was a fun group of kids to hang out with in college.
So after university, then, what was the next step for you from that point forwards? Then, having swum with such terrifyingly good swimmers while you were there.
Well, when I was at the University of Florida, I just was developing as a triathlete, I guess. Like I went from, just a runner on a relay to I won the collegiate championship here in the States in 2007. So I was a senior, and I decided to just kind of give the sport a go and try and go for the London Olympics. It was, the Beijing I was a little bit too late to the party for that one. And I figured with 4 years of development time, I might have a shot. So I just moved out to San Diego, where there's an Olympic training center out there, and USA Triathlon fortunately picked me up into their development programs, and I was able to live at the training centers for a few years and just train for triathlon.
Oh, fantastic. And then how did you get on in your quest for getting to the Olympics? How close did you get for that?
Well, I would say I didn't get very close at all. I ended up, I guess they
very
took
humble of
six
you.
people. Yeah, I wasn't very close at all. So they took 6 to the Olympic trials, which was San Diego WTS at the time. And I was in the top 6 for the majority of the quad. And then I started getting injuries into late 2011 and 2012. And I started missing race starts, and just my ranking just started dropping. And by the time the trials came around, I was there on site, but nobody rolled on for extra United States spots, and I was just watching the race from the sidelines. So that was kind of a bummer.
Yeah, so it's one of those things where you're just on the cusp and you're chasing it and you're picking up injuries and you're trying to get fit enough just to do it, and it didn't quite happen. What a heartbreaker.
Yeah, that was rough. I mean, it was things like plantar fasciitis, and I had a stress reaction in one of my metatarsals. And it was just things that now that I'm a long distance athlete, I've realized I'm not invincible, and I'm going to get injured at times, and I've been able to stay injury free during my long distance career. But it was the lessons I learned during the ITU days when I was trying to make the Olympics that made that possible.
But interesting.
Unfortunately, missed that start.
What a shame. But I mean, every cloud has a silver lining, as they say, and I guess is that the kind of the impetus then to move away from the Olympic distance stuff and more towards initially 70.3 and then eventually Ironman?
Yeah, like you said, back in 2010 and 2009, I did the World Championships, which were down in Clearwater, the 70.3 Worlds.
Oh yeah.
And I started to get the sense that I'd be better at the long distance stuff than I was at ITU. Just from like a sprint speed aspect, I wasn't like a super fast athlete like you see in the WTS racing these days. So I had made the decision. I was like, I'm going to just give long distance a try in late 2012 and 2013. And then it actually ended up going really well for me. And I just haven't looked back. And I definitely miss ITU racing. It's a ton of fun, but I don't think it's what I was cut out for in the end.
Yeah. Do you know what? I've got to apologise for this. I overlooked, going back far enough as 2009, you were actually 6th in Clearwater in 2009. Was that your first year at the 70.3 World Champs?
Yeah, that was my first one. I had qualified up in Augusta, Georgia at Augusta 70.3, and then I just kind of on a whim, I was like, yeah, I guess I'll race Clearwater when they offered the slot, because it's only like an hour and a half drive from my house in Orlando at the time. And I just drove over and had no expectations and ended up doing pretty well. So that was exciting.
Oh, wow. That's incredible. And that's obviously placed that seed in your mind of thinking, yeah, well, if the Olympics thing doesn't work out, I'm obviously fairly handy at the 70.3 distance.
Yeah, I was like, okay, like even if I don't make the Olympics, which is still my total focus, I was like, I should probably do long distance even if I do make the Olympics. It's like, I don't know. I just felt like long distance was where I was going to be really good. But it's, the ITU racing, it's just so fun, and there's such a camaraderie on the circuit. And I mean, just the aspect of being televised and races all around the world. It's such an exciting way to race. I wish I had been good at it, to be honest, but yeah, that wasn't in the cards.
And I guess you must be seeing at this point a lot of those friends of yours who you were racing with on the ITU circuit must now be coming through to the 70.3 circuit as well, right?
Yeah, I think I was part of the class that left after London, and then I'm just waiting to see who comes across this year. It's always like the year after the Olympics, you get a big influx of guys who give it a try, and some of them end up going back for what'll be Tokyo this time, but some of them stick, and it just makes the long distance racing that much harder.
Yeah.
I mean, it's already so deep with Jan Frodeno coming over, and then the long distance athletes like Sebi raising their game to match, and yeah, it's just going to get harder.
Well, let me ask you this: as a pro who's having loads of success at that level, how do you feel about Javier Gomez and Ali Brownlee making their intentions clear to move over to 70.3 this year? Are you excited to get to race against them?
Well, I'm excited to see like how they do. I mean, Javier Gomez has already raced a few halves, and clearly he's like an athlete for all distances. And I think Alistair could be the same way. He just doesn't give up. You know, when he races, he races so hard, which initially could be to his downfall. I think like, you know, he just goes all out for an Olympic distance or a sprint, whatever it is, and often just collapses at the line. But you do need a little bit more self-control in long distance, but he'll figure it out because he's just got such a big engine. He's an incredible athlete.
Yeah. We had Phil Graves on the show a few months back, and he's a training partner of Al Brownlee, and he was saying, man, people are in trouble when he comes across.
Yeah.
It's like, it's going to be the most spectacular performance ever, or oh boy.
Yeah. Either way, it'll be entertaining, and he'll figure it out at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk through something I really wanted to ask you about was seeing the pictures and reading your blog from Arizona in 2015 when you made the move from 70.3 up to your first Ironman. Can you talk us through your experience? Because I'm really interested in the differences and the parallels between, you know, a pro's experience of doing their first Ironman, because we often find that we assume that people are going to be, you know, having a very confident day when they step up to Ironman because they've been a professional triathlete for years and years, but that's very often not the case, it turns out. So how was it for you that stepping up to do Arizona and your first Ironman?
Well, I definitely had good coaching going into it. Matt was going to be on site. That's like one of the races that he ends up going to every year. And before the race, he told me, he's like, okay, it's a long day, and you've got your swim strength, but on the bike you need to really be. I mean, looking at the start list, if you're in a group, you just don't even take a pull. You know, don't even go to the front. We're riding legally, obviously, but like it's not a day to be super aggressive, because you want to come out at the end of the day and have had a good experience, like something you can look back on and say, okay, that wasn't horrible, and I actually kind of enjoyed it. Because I think it's the guys who end up blowing up and going 12 hours on their first run that maybe end up having a mental stumbling block for a long time in the Ironman distance. And that's basically the mindset I had going into it.
It's interesting, actually, reading your blog. I think Matt must have given you the same advice he gave to Jesse Thomas the first time he went out to Ironman Wales, because both of you have written on your blogs a really similar thing, which is kind of, my coach said, just treat this as like going out to train all day.
Yeah. It was funny with Jesse. I was hanging out with him at the World Champs in Austria, the Zell MC race, and he was heading over to Wales afterwards to do that race. And he says he didn't do any training for the Ironman, and it's actually true. He didn't train for the Ironman as specifically as we might think. Like, no long runs, and he just went, and I was like, ugh, like this could get rough for Jesse. And then he won. So typical Jesse.
Do you know, I was actually there in Wales that day, cheering him all on and watching him running and thinking, and I'd read his blog beforehand, and he'd written about how underprepared he felt he was, and I think he said he hadn't done a ride longer than, was it 4 hours maybe before that, and I was watching him run, and he's such a good runner, isn't he? He's got such a beautiful run form, and he looks so strong off the bike, and I was thinking, this could either be one of the most spectacular first moves over to Ironman, or you just don't know, he could end up not even finishing. So it was so good to see him, and he said afterwards he felt completely horrible, but he looked great the whole way around.
Yeah, he does have a great run for, it's very compact, and even though he's a bigger guy, he can just move that weight, I guess, over ground real efficiently. So that explains how good he is at Ironman now.
Yeah, sure. Hey, well, listen, sorry, let's take this back to you and your race at Arizona. You've ridden conservatively during the bike, which I think is the key to anybody who's going to have a hope in hell of getting themselves to the finish line in half decent shape. What was your run experience like at Arizona?
Well, like I had ridden so conservatively, and the discrepancy between the cyclists ahead of me and me, basically, like it was either a super cyclist or just a normal person like me. I was a good 4 miles behind, just starting the run behind Andrew Starkowitz. So that was an interesting time gap. They're like, "Oh, you're 29 minutes down," and I was like, "Oh, how's that even possible?" Like,
Is that the year he rode something ridiculous like 4:02 or something, Arizona?
yeah, yeah.
Wow.
And then basically everyone behind him was a well-known, talented cyclist. So there were some big time gaps. I just went out and sort of did the same thing. I just ran sort of like a training day, and I think I started in eighth and picked up a couple people, and then yeah, just it was just a really long run. It was the longest run I'd ever done. And miles like 14 to 20 were pretty dark, I would say. And Matt says I was grumpy.
Slight understatement there, is it?
Yeah. And then I realized I was like, oh, so basically it was raining all day. It was real cold. And I don't think I'd been eating enough. So I was grabbing like a lot of sugary drinks, right around mile 20, 21, just to try and bring myself back. And that was the key to running, I guess. I ended up having one of my faster miles as the last mile of the race. So overall, once it was over, it was a good experience, and we got what we wanted out of it.
And I think something that's hidden in, it says seventh place, and it's easy to kind of go, well, lots of people finish seventh in an Ironman, but to go 8:16 in your first Ironman, that's mind-blowingly fast. I mean, did you get to the end of that and think, I'm never doing one of these again? Or did you get to the end of it and go, do you know what? 8:16 is the kind of time that 99% of pros dream about doing their whole career.
Yeah, when I finished, I mean, I would say for about a minute, I was like, maybe I'll never do one of these again. But it was a really positive experience, and I got over that pretty fast. So, I mean, I think Matt said I was the fastest Ironman debut for any of his pros. So that was a good statistic to have. And yeah, I was pretty much ready to train for another one, but Matt's held me back just a little bit. We haven't done too many Ironmans yet, but yeah, I think that even going from 70.3 to Ironman has been another, like, just the longer the event gets for me, it's the better.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So let's take it forward then to this year and your race at Ironman Brazil. Talk us through how that went for you.
Yeah, so another day with just pouring rain for me. It seems like every race I do it rains, and we'll talk about Iceland
unlucky,
in a
right?
minute.
Because it's like Arizona and Brazil are two
Yeah.
places that are not really associated with having a cold, rainy day.
Yeah, and then 2016 St. George, which is right by, it's in the desert as well, so just can't keep the rain. I can't get a sunny day.
Well, promise us you're
Yeah.
not going to come and race in Wales, man, because if we combine your ability to bring the rain with Wales, it could flood the place out.
That's true. Well, from what I've heard about Jesse, maybe I should avoid Wales. It sounds like a hard course. He was just, I think he was like real intimidated by even the surf there. It sounds like a real hard race.
Yeah, it was. I mean, that year he was there, I was down with my family, and I was actually surfing on the beach just round the corner
Yeah.
the day before the race, and thinking, man, I'm glad. It was solid, it was shoulder high surf breaking on the beach, and I was thinking, there's going to be a lot of people get pounded tomorrow, but it did flatten off a lot overnight, luckily. But it was still, it was legit swim conditions, Kevin.
Yeah, yeah. That's what I saw in some pictures.
Yeah. So sorry, I'm in Brazil.
Yeah.
Again, you've got a cold, rainy day.
Yeah.
At least it looks like you
Yeah,
go well
so-
when it's cold and rainy, right?
Yeah, I just kind of, I mean, I dread the race all week because it's just like you look at the forecast and it says rain, of course, but then once you get into it, it's just another day. I guess I just end up handling it, and I had a good swim, and then Brent just rode off the front. I mean, he was just incredibly strong, Brent McMahon, and that kind of left everyone else to just fight for the scraps. And Tim Don and I ended up sort of riding together for almost the entire ride, and then I was out onto a rainy run for 26.2 miles around Florianopolis. So it was just a really consistent day. Matt had given me instructions that I was allowed to be aggressive, so definitely raced a little harder and with more just racing intent that day, and ended up with just getting on the podium there. And I almost got Tim at the end. He was cramping up in his quads, and honestly, for a few days afterwards, he couldn't walk. So I almost got him.
Yes, I read this in your blog that you were sort of, I don't know what, 4 minutes down, were you? And then the supporters were saying it's 3.5, it's 3, it's 2.5,
Yeah.
it's 2. And you must have had a real sense of excitement to be running strong towards the end of the race and closing him down like that.
Yeah, and then I started seeing that big mop of hair like bouncing up and down up ahead, and definitely kept me going. So, but he was able to hold it together. I think he lost like 4 minutes over a couple miles, but then he told me he told himself to pull himself together, and he had a stern talking to. That's what he said to himself. Yeah, he held on the second there.
So listen, I want to ask you a little bit about training, because our listeners and myself, we love talking about training and the things that people can learn and pick up. And you've mentioned a couple of times working with Matt at Purple Patch. What are some of the changes you've made working with him that you feel have really benefited you over the last couple of years?
Well, the biggest thing is that we went into it knowing that I was weak on the bike. So he's known for bringing people up a level on the bike, and the way he did it, it was an all-around approach. It was obviously lots of volume and lots of intensity, just like you would expect with any training program that tries to target the bike. But then he and New Zealander Paul Buick, between the two of them, they have a lot of great ideas about cycling, like dealing with many different ranges of cadences and being able to handle like anything that the race throws on you on the day. And it's been consistency in training, and then just working on all those specific points.
Interesting. So as well as doing the kind of volume that you do as a pro, something it sounds like you've changed is, firstly, you've really addressed training at different cadences, and by that, I guess we're going to be looking at doing some big gear work with low cadence and also some higher cadence spinning stuff. Would that be correct?
Yeah. So like actually, right after I get off this phone call, I'll be down on the trainer here and doing a low cadence session, and then I think what it is you end up doing like strength endurance, low cadence, at a decently high power into some really high cadence at the same power. So it's just kind of a yo-yo effect, and your heart rate really spikes when you hit that high cadence. And I think over time that sort of thing is just because you never know what you're going to get on the day, like whether you're descending like a fast hill or climbing the same hill. I don't know, but like you have to be able to run after this bike ride, and if you can't deal with everything that the race throws at you on the day, then it's going to affect your run. So that's been a big change for me.
Yeah, so it's almost like filling in the gaps in your toolbox, isn't it? So you've got the ability to race in different positions and different cadences and push bigger gears up hills when you need, and spin on the flats and spin down hills or with tailwinds, and be comfortable and not have that kind of blow your physiology apart because you haven't trained that way in training. That's really smart. How much do you do in terms of sort of intensity wise on the bike when you're doing real focused work? What would be an example of a hard threshold type session that you might do?
Well, I remember a specific session. So when we're training for like 70.3s or Olympic distance or Escape Alcatraz or something like that, I'll get these intense sessions where when the weather's nice, I can go out and climb some mountains here in Colorado and do like maybe 4 to 5 minutes at a medium to medium high intensity, straight into some like very, very high intensity riding, and then go back into that same sort of sub-threshold to threshold intensity again, and just rounds and rounds of that. And I mean, that's just real hard. And you end up looking back at your maybe hour and a half power that you've held, and it's over your threshold or something like that. So, I mean, can't do that too often, but maybe once a week or, leading into some of these faster races, it really helps.
So it's almost like a threshold crisscross session where you're doing 4 or 5 minutes just under your threshold, and then, I don't know, a minute or two significantly above it, and then dropping back down. And so I guess you're forcing your body to recover there just under threshold. So you're not recovering while you're riding easy, you're recovering while you're putting out significant power still.
Yeah, and then when he wants me to like really suffer, he throws in cadence changes in there too. So we get both of those workouts at the same time. So
nice. So double the suffering there, hey?
Yeah, double the suffering, and I have to do math while doing it. So it's like triply hard.
Oh, I love it. Right, and before I let you go, I want to ask you about the Half Challenge Iceland that you won, because I had a holiday over there a year ago and was just blown away by the scenery, and I mean the country itself is just amazingly beautiful, isn't it? So talk us through that race over there.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I wanted to go do the race. It was just kind of on the schedule on a good date last year, and I contacted the race organizers, and they were like really excited to have the pro race there, and I decided to go out and do it just because I really wanted to see Iceland. I've always wanted to go to Iceland, and it ended up being an awesome race. Of course, it was raining when we were racing.
Of course it was.
But a week later, they were tweeting pictures of perfect Icelandic summer days. So that's what it has the potential to be. But they swim in a kind of shallow lake there right outside of Reykjavik, and it has to be shallow because the deeper lakes don't really get above they barely get above freezing in the summer. So it was about 14 or 15 Celsius, so wetsuit legal. And
pretty
then
chilly still.
Yeah, the bike course, it's just these rolling Icelandic hills that have been carved out by glacial retreating, and it's almost like another planet. It's incredible. And then it's just, I guess it was me and who is it? The Italian athlete Molinari, and then of course Tim Don. I'm always racing Tim, it seems. But yeah, it was an incredible race. It was hard to like take your eyes off the scenery sometimes. Just like it's an incredible country.
Yeah,
I was happy to win it.
The real cool thing about your blog is how little of it you talk about the race, and it's all the photographs of you like at the exploding geysers and the waterfalls and pictures of you riding by these incredible mountains and the glaciers and stuff. So I really encourage people to go and check that out and have a look at your blog, because it is one of the coolest places on earth, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is cool. And I mean, it's a country of just so much diversity, I think because of the volcanic action there. And I mean, it's kind of an easy flight from Britain, so easier than from Denver, anyways.
An hour and a half or 2 hours or something away. So yeah, more people should go for sure. Would you go back? Are you going to go and defend your title next year?
Yes, it's on the schedule for this year, and I've heard from a lot of pros that also want to go back or want to try it for the first time. So it might not be as well. It was competitive last year, but it might be even more competitive this year. So I'll have a tough time defending my title, I think.
And what does the next year hold for you? What would be the perfect year for you next year if it plays out according to the plans you've made?
Well, we're kind of looking at focusing on 70.3 Worlds this year. I did Kona last year as a kind of an experience thing, but since Worlds is coming back to the United States in Chattanooga this year, we're thinking about focusing on that. And Kona still could be in the cards as it's 4 weeks later or 5 weeks later. But so I'll go through and race a bunch of 70.3s, and St. George here in Utah is always a focus as well. So I think just having another consistent season of racing well all year, that's always a goal. And to have a good result at 70.3 Worlds, because I haven't done well there since Las Vegas in 2013. So I would love to go back and have another good race there.
Race well on the home turf, as it were, hey?
Yeah.
Hey, tell us a little bit about the guys that sponsor you, because you're riding that really cool looking Ventum bike, aren't you? How have you found that?
Oh, the Ventum's awesome. It's just like I found it to be an Ironman workhorse because it just has that bottle on the frame. It's like it holds 1.4 liters. And I remember in Brazil, I didn't have to hit an aid station until after 90 kilometers, which was actually really convenient because it was just pouring rain and I could barely get my hands onto the bottles as it was.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been a great bike. I mean, in terms of like these new bikes that are coming out, it's really solid. Like it actually passed the EU like frame stress tests. Unlike some other frames that you hear about, like maybe cracking and breaking. But yeah, the Ventum's real solid, and it has good wind tunnel numbers to go with it. So I've really enjoyed working with those guys.
And it looks like it's come straight from like the Air Force testing base as well, which has got a lot going for it as well, hasn't it? It looks really cool.
Yeah, it's been growing on people. Like at the beginning, people were like, "Oh, what's that?" Like they didn't like how it looked, but most people now will just be like, "That's the coolest bike ever." So
yeah, it's a totally cool looking bike, and it's interesting the point you make. I don't think people consider the fact that you've got to carry your food and your nutrition and your liquids with you if you're racing iron distance, and something like that can make a big difference to you, can't it?
Yeah, and then for half Ironman, it's like I could actually load up the bike and never hit an aid station the whole time. So from a convenience standpoint and then aerodynamic standpoint, it's a great bike.
Yeah, cool. And I've noticed as well you're sponsored by Hoka One One. Now I've just been trialing a pair of these because my listeners will know I've got incredible fun with my Achilles tendons, and so many people said to me, "You want to try these Hokas? They'll really help you." So yeah, I'm giving those a go, and I got to say I like them. What's your experience been with them?
Oh, I signed on with Hoka like I guess 2 years ago, and at the time they didn't even make like a racing flat, like a racing shoe, as it were. And I mean, they just made these kind of bigger shoes that had lots of cushioning, and they basically kind of sell themselves, because people will come up and talk to me about it and how they love them and they've already tried them and they wear this model or this model. And it seems to me that like most people have really taken to the brand and what it does for them in terms of their injuries or helping them to run again. And then sort of like in the middle of my contract with them, they started coming out with racing flats. So they came out with two different types, and so now they're even moving into the racing shoes, and they're sponsoring some elite road racing teams here in the United States, and now some track clubs. And of course, they've always had like Leo Manzano, the miler here in the United States, and it's just been a really cool company to work with, similar to Ventum, like developing with the athletes as they go along.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just and they make great shoes. Like I'll run in some of the more padded, shoes for training, and then to have the racing options now is awesome.
Yeah, cool. And I think the thing you've said there is really important, to work with a cool company, with people that you get on with. I don't think you can put a price on that, can you really, if they're supporting you and you get on with them?
Yeah, exactly. Like in terms of Ventum, I know everyone who works there because there's only three of them. And
Yeah.
with Hoka, they just have a small little marketing team, and they certainly know what they're doing, and everybody's kind of been growing with the company as it goes along. So
Yeah.
they've started sponsoring the North American Ironman series here, and so they're at almost every race I go to. And
I didn't
yeah,
know
it's
they
just a really
sponsored
cool group of
the
people.
North American Ironmans, actually, because I was about to say they just seem to be everywhere at the races here, even at the little local 5K road races. There's a really cool gang of them over in the northwest of the UK that just seem to be at every race I go to with a van, letting people try shoes on. So that, for me, echoes my experience from when I was about 12 or 13 years old, and people would rock up to races with vans and you'd buy shoes at a race, So
Yeah.
there's a kind of old schoolness to that, isn't there?
Yeah, like old schoolness, and then I think they just know that their shoes sell themselves. They just put them on and go for a run, and you feel that cushioning, and then you're sold. So
Yeah, cool. Hey, well, listen, man, thank you so much for being on the show. I don't want to take up any more of your time because we've done our 30 minutes here, but it's been really interesting talking to you, mate. I hope we can get you back on the show in another year or so to hear about how your 2017 has gone.
yeah, hopefully there's something to talk about. And yeah, thanks for having me on the show.
Well, when you're 2017 World 70.3 champion, mate, we've got first dibs on the interview. How about that?
That's right. I'll follow in Tim Reed's footsteps this year for Purple
Brilliant.
Patch.
Awesome. All right, man. Thanks very much. We'll speak to you again soon.
All right, cool. Thanks, Rob.
Top guy, Hells. Loved that
Oh.
interview.
He's really fun, Rob.
Yeah, he's a really good guy. And I'll tell you what as well, I mentioned this at the start of the show, but he said he'd send over some stuff for our prize draw. And when I went and picked it up from the post office, he sent through 2 official Ironman backpacks that he's got from races, one of them from the World Championships. And I don't know whether this was just like a pro issue backpack or whether everybody got one, but it's like a super nice backpack. It's not one of those cheap ones that falls apart. Must be worth about 80 quid. So we had these 2 things in a box, a complete set of Hoka running kit, and it's cost him like $75 to post it from the US to get it over here. So what a sweetheart.
What a legend.
Yeah.
That's incredible. That sounds like some decent kit as well, Rob.
So anyone who sees Kevin Collington racing this year, you give him an extra cheer from us, because he's a good guy. He's on our good guy list, Helen.
We like positive people.
Yeah, he's got like a set of running tights from Hoka One and a top from Hoka One and a hat from Hoka One. So super kind of him. So if you guys are interested in making a donation for our prize draw, you can go to justgiving.com/crowdfunding/podcast. £20 donation gets you a ticket for the prize draw, and you can win one of those items. Who knows, it might be the Super Duper 70.3 World Championships backpack, signed, I forgot to mention, signed by Kevin Collington, both of them as well. So money can't buy prizes.
That is very, very cool. Rob, he
Thanks,
did...
Kevin. If you're listening, mate, thank you. I really appreciate it.
There you go. He did Monterey 70.3, that race in Mexico in 2015.
Yeah, he did. He was second.
Yeah, same one I did. It's exciting, isn't it? There you go. Cool.
Right, a bit of news then this week. Our news is sponsored by Precision Hydration. Now, Hells, the boys at Precision Hydration just sent us an email over. They don't know whether this is going to be live online yet or not. So the listener's going to have to go and check it out. It's going live this week. They've got a new online sweat test that's aimed just at triathletes. So whereas before their online sweat test was aimed at all sports people, they've had such a response from triathletes in particular, and a lot of them have come through the podcast, that they've redesigned a new online sweat test just for triathletes. So it'll be personalized information for whether you're racing sprint, Olympic, 70.3, iron distance, and longer possibly as well. So that is meant to be going live on there. It was any day now is what the guys said. So it might not be live yet, but if it is, go on and check it out, and you can take the online sweat test and get personalized hydration, salt advice just for you and the race that you're racing at, which I think is super cool.
Yeah, that is really, really cool. They're such a nice bunch.
Yeah. I like that they're constantly refining this, because it was like it would be easy for them to leave it there and be a one-size-fits-all thing, but the fact that they're addressing the different level of, because you do need different advice for different races that you're racing at, don't you? Different lengths of race. You're not going to need the same for a sprint as you will for an Ironman.
No.
Do you know what? I was going through some photos the other day, and I found a little packet of photos that's got the photos in from me after the World Champs in 2008 in the medical tent with an IV in. I thought I'm going to have to send Helen a copy of this. I might put it on Twitter later, actually. That'd make a nice little advertisement for Precision Hydration.
Oh.
If I'd been using their salt, this might not have happened, kind of thing.
Is that the one where you're just like lying on some sort of bed, Rob, with a drip in you, smiling? But probably
Trying
not really
to smile,
with it. Yeah, exactly.
Very grey indeed.
Yes. I think I might have seen that photo.
Covered in foil blankets.
Oh, not pretty.
Yeah, stick that up on Twitter later. Right, come on, what news have we got going on this week then, Hals?
Well, just a very, very quick one. There was one bit is that Chrissy Wellington is going to have a new book out this year. It's going to be called To the Finish Line. A World Champion Triathlete's Guide to Your Perfect Race. It's going to be out in spring 2017, so that's quite cool. Yeah. It's
especially cool because when people have got books coming out, they come on podcasts, don't they? Can we get her back on? Can we get back on? Can we get back on? Chrissy, come on our show. Oh, I'd love to have her back on to talk about that.
I reckon.
Let's do a Tuesday interview. Let's do like a joint Skype interview of Chrissy. Please sort it out. Does begging work? Is that a viable business strategy?
Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe.
But yeah, it's true though, Rob. When people have books out, then they tend to do interviews. So we will see.
Oh, hopefully so. That'd be brilliant to get her back on. And it's ace that she's got a book coming out about triathlon as well, because we were talking, weren't we, a while ago about what she was going to do next and whether she's staying in the triathlon world. And it's great to see that she is doing. I want to read it.
It's cool, isn't it?
Get me a copy. Yeah.
Rob, she's doing the London Marathon this year as well.
Yeah. Now, is she the wrong way to? Well,
is she in the elite field?
She's not doing it for fun in inverted commas because it's Chrissy Wellington. But how focused on it is she? I guess the question is.
I imagine she's pretty focused.
Yeah.
She won't be doing it just to get around.
Has she ever done a flat-out marathon? Do you know?
Yes, because in her book that was the thing that sort of got her on the road to endurance sports. I think she did a 3:08 in London.
Right. But yeah, that was the first thing that she'd done, though,
Yeah.
wasn't it? Like, and her
Yeah.
friends all went, "You've
Yeah.
clearly got some talent for this." I was meaning, I wonder if she's done one since.
Oh.
You know what I mean? Because she ran, what did she run? Like 2:48,
I want to say 2:48.
I want to say, at Roth,
Yeah. Yeah.
off the bike. So you've got to wonder how fast she can go. I mean, obviously she's had a child since then, and she's not training as a professional athlete anymore. But we just don't know, do we?
No.
Wouldn't it be awesome if she rocked up and went like 2:29 or something?
It would be like, wow. Yeah. If she got the qualification standard for something.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean,
Don't
what is
rule it
it?
out.
Low 230s probably for the women, right?
Probably. Honestly. I would never rule anything out.
No, absolutely not.
No.
And marathon runners seem to keep on getting stronger, don't they, as they get older?
Exactly.
So she's probably entering her prime for marathon running.
Joe Pavey's doing it as well.
Really?
Yeah, the London Marathon. Yep. This year. It's going to be a great race.
Yes, it is.
It's going to be great. Rob, the other bit of news which I came
Yes.
across. Oh my God. I saw
There's
this.
going to be some listeners entering this. If you're a listener, you're going to enter this. Tell us, right? We want tweeting if you're going to enter this.
Right. So Ironman are doing a quest for Kona. So they're going to do a new TV series, right? And they want to feature 10 athletes from around the world. So they'll have their own 30-minute show and basically 10 competitors trying to qualify for the World Championships in Hawaii. So what you've got to do is you have to send them a 2-minute video which shows why you should be one of their 10 featured athletes, and then you've got to fill out a questionnaire as well. So they say that the chief marketing officer of Ironman says this documentary style program allows us to go into greater depth as we share the sacrifices and commitment that Ironman athletes demonstrate to reach their goals.
Do it, Helen. Do it.
God,
Get
no.
your application in. Do it. You'd be brilliant at this.
No way.
You would be brilliant at it. Come on.
No.
You're doing a qualification race this year.
There's no way I would want a... No way. Anyway, they do say... I love this bit.
I can hear the disdain in your voice.
Yeah, exactly. It's
just not you, is it?
This
No.
is not at
Filming
my
yourself
street.
on a GoPro.
No, exactly. It says here, please note, this is not an offering of bonus slots to the Ironman World Championship. It is an opportunity to share your journey of competing at an Ironman qualifying event.
It's like they want to head off the people in the forum going, this is going to be another 30 slot or whatever, 10 slots given away.
Yeah.
Hey, it'll be interesting. I think that'll make a good show, in all seriousness. I really do.
If they find the right people for it.
They get the right, and they will do, because they're good at what they do. They will get a good spread of people.
Yep.
I
mean, right, I'm just putting it out there. Duncan, don't know if you're listening, Duncan Shea Simmons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There
I'm
you
just
go.
thinking.
Duncan and Sebe.
Yep.
Yeah, totally.
Do it.
Yeah. I'd sent someone a note this morning, somebody I know who I think would be absolutely perfect for this. I'm not gonna give it away for now because I'm going to get him on the podcast in a couple of months' time. But yeah.
Yeah, Duncan and Hasib would be fantastic.
Yeah, that's what we want. Get in there, Dunk.
There we go.
Sorry, I don't know whether people call him Dunk. I've never met him or spoken to him, but a little over familiarity for me there. My apologies, Duncan. We've both got Volkswagen T5s though, so I feel we've got some kind of kinship going on. I'd laugh with his missus, so there you go, you know. Oh, well, I guess that's the end of the show then, really. We should probably wrap this up and let people go.
I think we should, Rob. I think we should. I'm going orienteering this week.
You're orienteering, and are you also open fiving this weekend?
No, I'm working.
Oh, what a shame.
Yeah, I'm open fiving in a month.
Ah, okay, got you.
Yeah, no, this week is orienteering and then sitting at a desk at the weekend.
Well, yay for orienteering.
Yay!
Sitting at the desk.
Great. So yeah, have fun out there. Have fun racing, training, all that kind of jazz.
I'm going to run across the lakes this weekend. That's my plan, if the weather isn't hideous.
Are you?
Yeah.
Top to bottom?
Yeah.
Left to
I do
right?
top to bottom. Keswick to Ambleside, that's my plan. I'm going to do the Helvellyn spine.
Oh my God. Take care out there, Rob.
Absolutely. It might be a bit wintry, actually, thinking about it.
Yeah. Just take care. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. All right.
Great.
Take Russia with me. He can look after me.
Yeah, great.
Russia will be going, what? Hey, you haven't mentioned that. All right, let's wrap this up then. Thanks very much for listening, everybody. You've been listening to the Oxygen Addict Triathlon podcast. Our sponsors have been tgstore.co.uk, precisionhydration.com, and team.oxygenaddict.com. Until next week, have a fantastic training and racing week. I've been Coach Rob Wilby.
I'm Helen Murray.
And have a great week. Thanks for listening, and we'll speak to you again next week. Bye now.